As you may have noticed, because it is quite visible throughout places like Tenleytown and Northwest DC, a giant cylindrical tower lies right in front of us. Fort Reno, the highest point in DC. Many of us, including myself, have thought of Fort Reno to simply be a water treatment plant, and there's nothing else to it. Growing up a block away from it, for years, this is all I thought. But is the constant security of this site something a water treatment plant would have? Diving deeper into this site, there's a much deeper history to be discovered. Codenamed Cartwheel, the facility at Fort Reno supported one of many programs that provided communications for the president in case of emergency. Fort Reno was built in the early 60s to be a part of the WHCA, the White House Communications Agency, and it continued throughout the Cold War. But what was the WHCA? The WHCA ensures security to the president and the security of our nation in case of emergencies like nuclear war or other extreme threats. With the use of advanced technologies, the WHCA created a span of sites across the DMV area, even out towards Pennsylvania, which we will look at later. As communication technologies have been discovered, they have been used to protect our security. Starting with FM, it was slow but advanced in the 40s and 50s. This photo is of the old water treatment tower on Fort Reno. It was equipped with FM radio, which could be broadcasted across the DMV area. This tower still remains on the hill and is still disclosed as a water treatment tower to this day. However, as technologies became more advanced, microwave technology was introduced, which called for more infrastructure to host it. The tower on Fort Reno, which we all know, has its construction photos released to the public in the archives. Remember, all of this construction was right in front of the public the whole time, as was right next to the neighborhoods that could see out their back windows. This is why it was so important that the WHCA made the tower seem like it was just an improved water treatment plant. This is partially why the design of the tower blends in with the neighborhood. No other reason. To keep up the security, all of the water workers had to come into the site wearing civilian clothing and undercover government vehicles. Because there was a need for the site to be manned 24/7, there were a lot of people coming in and out, as you never know when there might be a nuclear blast, especially during the Cold War. But there is more to it than just the microwave technology it hosts. As shown in these photos, there are kitchens, bunkers, massive blast doors, and empty rooms. For what? Fort Reno actually serves not just as a communication center, but a bunker for the president in case of emergency. Inside of the secure site, the kitchens could be used in case the president was stranded there. There were bathrooms, and more importantly, a switchboard for the president to use in case launching nuclear missiles became needed, as well as grounded lines to Site R, which we will talk about later. And I don't know about you, but in these photos from the archive, they keep showing a mysterious man in black. He was in various photos and kept unnamed. Was there something more to just this small bunker and microwaves? Of course, in a situation of Cartwheel being destroyed in nuclear war, there were many other sites issued to keep communications going. 6 WHCA sites, at least that we know of, were also built during this time. Cowpuncher, Creed, Crystal, Cactus, Cartwheel, and Cannonball are all the known sites, all starting with C. They all had the same thing in common: a tall, cylindrical tower, all of which were disclosed to the public as water treatment plants. Not very creative, but it got the job done for the most part. Cannonball is Site 2 on the list of presidential emergency facilities. Constructed in 1959 atop Cross Mountain, east of Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, it was designed so, quote, everything under the sun could not prevent the president from communicating in case of a nuclear disaster. With an interview I had with John Cross, the former head of Site Cannonball, he disclosed how he got this unique job and what was needed to maintain its security.
They were going to proceed to, do a security clearance on us. And also, I had to pass a polygraph examination. Went back to my hometown.
Oh, wow.
And interviewed my ex-neighbors to see what kind of an individual I was. Well, anyways, we were told we had to blend in to the community. But we couldn't tell anybody outside of course, my family that was, new, but we couldn't tell anybody what we did or where we did it. They assumed that it was a water tower. They would see the tanker, we would go into Mercersburg and fill the tanker up with water and haul it to the top of the mountain. So they assumed that it was a water tower up there. I told them I was in communications, and that was about the extent of it.
Having, therefore, been self-contained, the building was equipped with backup power, secure living, and enough supplies to ensure the operation was never compromised, and that every single bit of communication was assured. As I mentioned before, Site R was one of the more important sites. Site R, codenamed Creed, was built in the 50s for presidential relocation. It ties the connection throughout all the other C sites. What makes this site unique, or at least what we think about it to be unique, is where it's located. In Blue Ridge Summit, Pennsylvania, Creed is placed among the hills. But what's so special about that? It can be seen from aerial view, but just a small amount of it. The rest of it is 768 feet underground. Putting that into perspective is hard, but it's about 2 football fields straight down, or 7.5 towers like the one from Fort Reno down. I wonder what else could be going on down there. What could possibly need that much space? Some conspiracies are that it houses an underground hangar for government plans and other advanced technologies needed for war. And surprisingly, this might be on the right path. While interviewing John Cross, he was able to disclose that it was called, at least among the government workers who are aware of it, the Underground Pentagon. It was ran by the Army, and the rest of it is classified. So, what could this possibly mean? Well, at Camp David, codenamed Cactus, there's another underground bunker, possibly of the same size, all while placed under a normal-looking house. As I mentioned before, both Cannonball and Cartwheel are disclosed to the public as water treatment facilities. Camp David had this in common. Site Cactus, located on Camp David, was disguised as a water treatment operation, and it was even disguised as this when Khrushchev, former premier of the Soviet Union, visited President Eisenhower at Camp David. Could this mean Cartwheel could have even more hidden under us this whole time? Over 700 feet deep? Well, sadly no. It's not that exciting. John Cross said that during the decommission of Cartwheel as a WHCA center in the 90s, it was switched over to the FAA. And ever since then, it has been crucial in communicating with planes and whatnot in the area.
Of the 6 original soil samples taken by the U.S. Geological Survey, the samples that appeared to show astronomical levels of arsenic have been retested and only have trace levels, not enough to pose any safety threat. But one area remains closed. These flags show where soil samples were taken, samples which came back with elevated levels of lead, not arsenic. More retesting on those samples is being done. For now, the Park Service has closed off one small area on a hill to the west of the park, just off Belt Road. But the rest of Fort Reno Park, again, is open to the public.
This was in 1998, almost 10 years after Cartwheel was repurposed to the FAA. The hill was closed off to the public for health concerns. And John Cross actually was quoted saying, "All of the microwave routes were phased out in the early 90s. I can only assume that the FAA took over Cartwheel and Corkscrew at this time," end quote. Ignoring Corkscrew for now, John Cross said that he only assumed Cartwheel was under FAA control, which is often a cover the government says old facilities are part of. And, astronomical levels of arsenic and lead? Probably just some weird phenomenon that happens quite often. Our backyards probably have a high amount of arsenic and lead because that's a really normal thing. Or something else. Quoted from the Delaware Health and Social Services.gov, this could be because of mining operations. And quoted from EPA.gov, lead in soil is, quote, as a result of air emissions from vehicles that used leaded gasoline. Okay. What? Is Cartwheel under renovation? Digging out massive space under it for something huge? I'm not entirely sure what the government would need all of this space for. Another underground Pentagon seems quite out of the picture. But it has been done before. I mean, it's definitely not using the tower as a missile silo, a theory I jokingly made as a kid. But there's definitely something more down there. So I'm at the top of Fort Reno right now, looking at what there is. As you can see, the tower, but also that red shack. That shack hasn't been there for the entire Fort Reno history. It's relatively new, and some people have thought of it to be a server farm, computers inside. There is a good amount of noise coming out of it. There's no way to really tell because obviously I can't see inside, but there's a lot of airflow going in and out, which is crucial for server rooms. And not just that, there's been construction. Well, not necessarily construction. There's been work done on Reno Hill a couple times throughout this year. There's been like cat machines and everything at this one spot. I don't know what is happening, but there could be something from underground. Again, there's no real way to tell. I'm not an expert on mining or contaminants or whatever, but it's definitely interesting. This entire hill, and there's only stuff in this spot. There's dead grass. Very unusual. And as it was said in the video, there was a small hill off of the actual park that was still closed off. I'm standing on it right now by this tree, It's unusual that there's still one point on the hill that was closed off, and there was higher amounts of either arsenic or lead. Sadly, I can't see underground, but this is where they close it off. This is like the rear of the hill. This is where all the workers come in and out. There's a bunch of warnings everywhere. Barbed wire. A really secure entrance here. This is all it is. I'm not gonna be able to get inside. I'm not hopping over that fence. But it's a lot more secure on this side than here. And there's a giant gate, I'm guessing, so cars can come in and out. A bunch of these weird blocks in the ground, not sure what they're for. I've been waiting to see if anybody's coming in and out, but there's been nobody. Something's going on here though. And when you're looking at the tower, you can see the difference in material is just normal brick. But up here, this is the plexiglass, obviously different material. That surrounds the microwave antennas. Yeah. I just noticed the top right or top left of the hill, there's this new camera that was brought up. These boxes, yeah, it's just extra security. There are these things in the ground. Maybe it's ventilation or something from underground.